Do you love crime and dinosaurs? Well, you might be a participant in the events of the Jurassic Games, in which 10 death row convicts are forced to compete in a virtual reality game that pits them against dinosaurs and each other. Today we will be talking about the movie, followed by a detailed analysis of the dinosaurs in it, as well as how sexy these dinos look. I'm Sore Loser. Dinosaurs make me look cool at parties, and I'm gonna show up to yours. If you want to skip the analysis section, then please click here. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy. Our story begins with an edgy quote about using executions as sports/entertainment material. Yeah, this guy might be a nerd. We next see some people poking doodads, and while a TV show host talks about a guilty murder conviction. This is just going to be a Hunger Games clone, isn't it? Then we see some people wearing VR headsets as a hologram lady talks to our main character, Anthony Tucker. He agrees to participate in the Jurassic Games as we see the counter for said games going down. We are then shown the doodad touchers designing a game map as a man dons a Spirit Halloween promo mask. Our characters spawn in and the man in the mask starts giving them the lowdown. They are all criminals who are on death row and will receive the death penalty unless they participate. Basically, they can feel, hear, and taste everything in the game as if it was real life. They all have explosive collars on, so if they act up, they get blowed up. If they are the last ones standing, then they will win a full pardon for their crimes that they have committed. Also, the way this guy emotes is exactly the way I emote when I'm talking about dinosaurs. He tells them that they first need to get to a nearby safe zone in an hour, or they will die, and reminds them that if they die in the game, then the state will kill them via lethal injection in real life. Sounds fun. I remember a movie that had a very similar premise. Then he welcomes the first dino on screen, and damn, boy! They didn't skimp. This shit looks pretty good. This is Tyrannosaurus rex, an apex predator of the late Cretaceous period, about 72 to 66 million years ago, and one of the best represented theropods. We're gonna talk more about them later. Anyways, Dino don't fuck around as she bitch slaps this guy and eats this old man. And I feel like I've heard this scream somewhere before. I just can't place my finger on it. If you could help me out, I'd appreciate it. And as just stated, this old man is then killed in real life. The previously masked man then talks about this year's contestants while inside the control room. And then we cut to this universe's version of a Super Bowl party, but for the games. Next, we see this man walking his way through the woods, and we're gonna call him Big Ounce, when he hears something. Another contestant, who we will call Bitey Boy, and you'll see why, is behind him. So Big Ounce charges the guy and tells him to stay out of the way, calls him a piece of shit. When he turns around, the other guy jumps on him and bites a chunk out. See? Big Ounce is understandably freaked out about this and runs away, while the Bitey Boy screams about being able to taste them, which is just giggity. Unmasked Man then begins to talk about the 4 stages of this year's games. The first one is run to the safe zone within an hour. The second one is to complete a maze while raptors chase you. And then he says this.
That's right, the Raptors are back this year.
Yes! The third is to navigate a minefield while pterosaurs are trying to eat you. And that's just awesome. The writers were really on one with this movie. We then see each contestant's names and crimes, but I've got my own names for them, so skip. We also see that the old guy that got likes to do this in his spare time. We then cut to this lady, who we will call Katniss, walking around and bumping into Big Ounce. Big Ounce takes offense to her presence and decides to choke her. Our main character Anthony then shows up to White Knight and fight Big Ounce. He ends the fight with a big rock, and Katniss takes out Big Ounce on principle of disrespect, and then says to Anthony that she's here to kill people, like a really edgy lady, and that's big talk for someone who just almost died. And then Anthony gives her this what the fuck face before the two move on. We quickly see a tiny dino come to check if Big Ounce is edible, and fun fact, he is. Just ask Bitey Boy. This is Compsognathus longips. They were small, bipedal, carnivorous theropod dinosaurs. And about the size of a modern-day chicken, they lived in what is now Europe during the late Jurassic period. We're going to talk more about them later. We get a quick look at Anthony's kids giving him a video message, and the look on his daughter's face is just rubbing me the wrong way. Real Uncanny Valley type vibes here. Like, is she even a real person? We then cut to some more dinos. These are what I believe to be Deinonychus anteropus. Growing up to 11 foot long, they stalked what is now North America during the early Cretaceous period, about 108 to 115 million years ago. And their study in part helped lead to a period of time called the Dinosaur Renaissance. We're going to talk more about them later. This control room lady wants to know why these Deinonychus were spawned so far away. And the technician says tension. And then we hear the best line of the movie.
Our viewers don't care about tension, Brian. They just want to see the contestants die horribly.
The dinos then take off, and we cut back to Tucker and Katniss. They talk about Anthony's wife and his supposed innocence in her murder. And she says that she believes him before attacking him. She manages to get a noose around his neck, and wait, where did this rope come from? I mean, one moment it's just not there, and the next it is. Well, she hauls him up to die with her rope, and I think Anthony should really report her to the game devs for spawning items illegally. She disagrees with this and ties the rope off and wishes him luck with a swift kick to the nuts. That's what we call foreplay in my house. And he almost goes into that sweet night before having his life saved by this guy who we will call Master Un. And I will tell you why later. He tells Anthony that they need to work together to get as far as possible to escape. Master Un then takes off with Anthony in tow as we cut to a guy who doesn't know how to run rocky terrain. We will call him Ponytail. Ponytail's leg gets hurt, but continues running as two more guys come upon him. Man, there's a lot of people in this movie. This guy is going to be Dale, and then this one will be Seth, short for shitty, egotistical, terrible hair. They kindly ask Ponytail if he knows the way to the safe zone, and he tells him he does not. Dale decides to give him a hug as a thank you anyways. The dinos then show up to end this bromance, but it's not the right time according to the unmasked man, so they phase right through them. This causes the three to create an alliance on the terms that Ponytail will pay for these two's mom's cancer treatment when he gets out. We then learn immediately that their mom already died.
Lol.
So Anthony and Master Un make it closer to the safe zone when they run into these raptors. The raptors leave, and we briefly see a green light appear off screen. We then see this girl, who we will call Blondie. Bitey Boy shows up to tell her that she might taste pretty good, giggity, and the stage 2 door appears. We then see a cool dragonfly, which is awesome. I love it. I can't believe Katniss would step on that for no reason. What a bitch. She also, unfortunately, makes it to stage 2. Next, we see all of our surviving characters in one place. Anthony and Katniss got beef now, but before they can settle it, everyone is knocked out. We then see this funny-ass commercial with all of our characters being sold as action figures on TV. And I mean, the social commentary in this movie is just, So our 8 remaining characters wake up to find themselves chained to the wall. Masked Man is there to tell them that the first person to escape said chains gets a firearm. And obviously everyone wants to be the one holding the firearm, not staring down its barrel, so they immediately start trying to escape. They can do this by solving the maze on the wall just behind them. Bitey Boy manages to get out first and starts to flaunt his new firearm. Anthony finishes next and politely asks for his turn with it. And before he can shoot Bitey Boy, an alarm is heard, letting our characters know that the raptors are loose. And I mean, I would still probably double tap this guy. Everyone else starts to get out of their binds while the raptors start stalking their prey. And I mean, look at this scene. It just looks so good. I can't believe it was in a movie like this. Master Un ends up back at the start eventually, and the raptors corner him. And he legitimately starts to fight back and actually roundhouse kicks this one in the head. It reminds me of my old Taekwondo instructor, Master Un. That's why I called him this. He was just a badass like this guy. He's actually whooping the fuck out of these raptors, but eventually they take him down. Rip Master Un, I'll never forget your teachings. Blondie almost meets her end next, but Anthony can't stop respecting women. Anthony and her then run into a few others as they take out some more raptors while they run. They eventually stop at a dead end with a grate in which they just bust open, and Anthony finishes off the few raptors that chase them into the crawl space, and they all end up making it to the other side. Bitey Boy then immediately attacks Anthony again and takes his firearm, but finds out it's out of ammo. This displeases Anthony, so he knocks Bitey Boy out. Again, probably should just kill him, but whatever. Masked Man is then seen, and he rewards Blondie with a mind map for being the first out of the maze. She immediately gets this taken away from her by Seth, and the group sets off. We get shown some of Blondie's crimes, and holy moly, look at some of these YouTube videos. Anyways, as the group moves along, we see some Apatosauruses grazing. And with 2 described species, they were large herbivorous sauropods that lived about 150 million years ago during the late Jurassic period. Growing to a size between 69 and 75 feet, these dinosaurs shook the earth with each step they took. We will be talking more about them later. This doesn't bother our alpha Chad Anthony, and they keep moving on as Blondie asks about his innocence. We then cut to this dynamic trio arguing about the map. Ponytail isn't paying attention and gets got by this Demogorgon looking plant. I'm assuming this maybe is a relative of the Venus flytrap. Seth manages to fight off the man-eating plant, and Ponytail is down for the count. He then takes this opportunity to tell Seth that he was never going to help him anyways, calls him a piece of shit a couple times, and then gets curb stomped into the next life. Our group then pushes onward as we see some pterosaurs spawn in. They make it to a supply drop, and the masked man comes in to tell them how to get it. All they have to do is walk to it. A Triceratops spawns in and says some hurtful things to our group before being blown up by a mine. Now, Triceratops were a genus of Hasmorricine ceratopsian dinosaur, and I will explain what that is later, but they lived during the late Cretaceous period. With 2 valid species known and many more named, they lived in what is now North America about 66 million years ago, and they are amongst the most recognizable dinosaurs, sharing a landscape with Tyrannosaurus rex. We will be talking about them more in the analysis. So we got it. Don't bring your Triceratops to Minefield Day. As the group starts entering the playing field, Seth attacks Anthony, and how many times is Anthony gonna get attacked from behind? It's just comical at this point. Seth starts yelling about how he wants to quit, and Anthony ends up breaking out of his grasp, and Seth is left outside the challenge area. This causes his head to shittily explode in post-editing. I almost audibly gasped at this point. The dinos in this movie look so good. How is his head explosion so terrible? Anyways, our group is not fazed by Seth's noggin explosion and continues through the minefield. These pterosaurs that spawned in earlier can now be seen watching the group before they swoop in to attack. And these fellows probably belong to a genus called Pterodactylus. And they are thought to contain only a single species, Pterodactylus antiquus, which was the first pterosaur to be named and identified as a flying reptile, and one of the first prehistoric reptiles to ever be discovered. They would have patrolled the skies during the late Jurassic period, about 148 million years ago. More about them later. Dave is then picked up and dropped onto a mine, which is just fucking hilarious. What a way to go. The group scrambles to the supply cache, and Blondie gets hold of ammunition and a knife first. We then cut to our group in a different location. I guess they just walked themselves the fuck out of their previous predicament. And they talk amongst themselves for a bit before Anthony decides to leave Blondie with Bitey Boy, which just does not seem like a good idea. Anthony manages to find Katniss and monologues about what happened to his wife. Katniss doesn't give a single fuck and says she's just gonna kill him at the end of the games. My same reaction to that information. Screaming can then be heard, and we cut to Bitey Boy, biting Blondie. Gee, who would have thought that could happen? Bitey Boy and Anthony get into it, and our Chad here gets stabbed in the gut.
Ow, Charlie!
And then kneed in the face for the 3rd time this movie. Bitey Boy retrieves the firearm and its ammo and begins to hunt the other 2. He chases Tucker to a cliff and gets hit with the Unga stick. This doesn't faze the crazed man. The 2 struggle for the weapon for a bit before it's kicked over the side. And like a lunatic, Bitey Boy goes after it and just fucking falls on his face. He retrieves the weapon, but on the way back, he gets jumped by a large group of what I think look like trilobites, but those were sea arthropods, so, I'm not sure why, but for some reason they freak out when they hit this corner edge of the rock. They end up surrounding Bitey Boy and crawling on him, and he's reduced to a skeleton in 5 seconds. There's a joke here, back with Blondie, she isn't doing so well, and neither is Anthony, honestly, who just rips out the wood stake in his abdomen. Which, don't you ever do that. It will cause you to bleed out much faster. Just leave that shit in there. Like a Chad. We then see Katniss getting cornered by a Smilodon, but that problem quickly takes care of itself. And honestly, a lot of stuff like that happens in this movie that just doesn't amount to anything, and you're just sitting there okay. Now, I know Smilodon is not a dinosaur, but I will be giving it an honorable mention in the analysis. Well, next, Blondie makes her way up to Katniss and receives a kick in the face for her efforts. She is then eaten alive by the Smilodon below. There are only 2 left now, and inside the control room, a coup is starting to take place in order to stop these unethical games. I don't know, man, I thought they were kind of cool. The final door opens for both of them, and they appear in a desert. The masked man appears to tell them the rules for the last round. They need to unlock the padlocks that they are chained to, and the keys are buried in the sand somewhere between them, and they must make it outside of the circle first in order to win. Anthony starts by looking for the keys, while Katniss chooses the high IQ play of beating his ass and monologuing. 4th knee to the face, by the way, if anyone was wondering. Katniss then reveals that she was the one who killed Anthony's wife all along. For chaos or something. Honestly, I really couldn't pin down a motive. She was just kind of speaking nonsense. This technically makes Anthony innocent and really angry, but a T-Rex spawns in and narrowly takes out our MC. Katniss finds her key, but also attracts the attention of the Rex. Two more then spawn in, and to add to the chaos, they all begin fighting. Turns out that they were programmed to act as they would in real life. One of them gets taken out, and it lands on Katniss's chain. Anthony ends up finding his key, unfortunately just like that, but manages to unlock himself as Katniss gets her chain loose. One of the remaining T-Rexes decides to use his janky hitbox to recovery kick the other, and Anthony and Katniss race neck and neck to the edge. Wow, the crowd can't handle the tension at all. And Anthony narrowly pulls ahead, which I'm glad. Katniss was such a bitch in this movie. I'm glad her head shittily explodes. Anthony is then pulled out of the games, and the coup starts in earnest. Masked Man is forced to be put into the game, and his technician friend tries to call off the T-Rex, but makes the fatal error of saying, "You're not gonna shoot me," and then gets shot. Classic. Masked Man, or I guess Unmasked Man now, has to face the music here and is eaten alive by a beautiful T-Rex. We get a shitty slow-mo scene of the cops raiding the station, and Anthony gets shot in the chest. This dude's existence is just pain. At least no one needs him in the face anymore, though. We then see Anthony at home with his kids. On the TV in the background, we see that the Jurassic Games is indeed still going on, making that coup attempt absolutely useless. And we see that the dinosaurs were given some upgrades for this year. Holy shit, I love the writers of this movie. I need whatever they're fucking smoking. Our movie ends as our T-Rex shoots missiles everywhere, and I mean, wow, what a ride. Honestly, I really enjoyed this movie. It was super silly, but a fun watch. I cannot stress to you enough, though, only 3 of the dinosaurs featured in this movie lived in the Jurassic period. And without further ado, we are moving on to the analysis section of our video. Alright, welcome to the analysis. I have split the dinos into 2 groups and 1 group for the kitty cat. So we are going to start with the Jurassic gents here. And for our Jurassic gents, we are going to get started with our big boy here. This is Apatosaurus. And Apatosaurus was a large, long-necked quadrupedal animal with a long whip-like tail. Apatosaurus had an average length of 21 to 23 meters, or 69 to 75 feet, and an average mass of 16.4 to 22.4 tons. Because it was so big, in order to lighten its vertebra, Apatosaurus had air sacs that made its bones internally full of holes. And like that of other diplodocids, its tail may have actually been used as a whip to create loud noises, or, as more recently suggested, as a sensory organ. What I mean by that is as they traveled in large herds, they might have used their tails to actually feel behind and around them while they were walking. Now, its name, Apatosaurus, means deceptive lizard, and it would have lived in what is now modern-day Colorado, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Wyoming, and Utah in the United States. And its most prominent fossils are known from the Morrison Formation. And a study of diplodocid snouts showed that the square snout, large proportion of pits, and fine subparallel scratches of the teeth of Apatosaurus suggests it was a ground-height, non-selective browser. It may have eaten ferns, seed ferns, horsetails, and algae. And socially, it probably lived in herds, and the size of these herds is speculative, but it's clear that these creatures migrated together and used these herds to help protect their young, which grew to the adult size in about 10 years. Alright, and moving on to our smaller of the 3, we have Compsognathus longites, which was a genus of small carnivorous theropod dinosaur. Now, many presentations still describe Compsognathus as chicken-sized dinosaurs, like I did in the video, but this is because of the size of the German specimen, which is one of 2 found, and is now believed to be a juvenile. Its actual adult size is supposed to be around 1 meter, or 3 feet 3 inches long, and weighing about 2.5 kilograms, or 5.5 pounds. They were once known as the smallest non-avian dinosaur until Microraptor was discovered. And some relatives of Compsognathus, namely Sinosauropteryx, have been preserved with the remains of simple feathers covering the body like fur, prompting some scientists to suggest that Compsognathus might have been feathered in a similar way. And its name, Compsognathus, translates in Greek to elegant jaw, and it would have lived in what is now Europe during the late Jurassic period, about 150 million years ago. And during the Jurassic, this region was part of the Solnhofen archipelago. As for its skeleton, paleontologists have found 2 well-preserved fossils, one in Germany in the 1850s and a second one in France during the 1970s. As for its hunting habits, the remains of a lizard have been found in the German specimen's thoracic cavity, and this shows that Compsognathus probably preyed on small vertebrates. It is also theorized that because it ate and dismembered this lizard, that it probably must have had sharp vision and the ability to rapidly accelerate to outrun its prey. Now, it is very popular to portray Compsognathus as a pack-type predator. I blame Jurassic Park for that. However, I don't think it was as an aggressive dinosaur as it's shown. I personally think that it was probably an opportunistic scavenger and would have likely been more reclusive, possibly existing in small groups made out of familial members. But that's just me. And last for the Jurassic gents, we have Pterodactylus antiquus. Now, Pterodactylus antiquus was a relatively small pterosaur with an estimated adult wingspan of about 3 feet 5 inches. Now, Pterodactylus, like related pterosaurs, had a crest on its skull that composed mainly of soft tissues. And the skulls of these adult Pterodactylus were long and thin, with about 90 narrow and conical teeth. And like all pterosaurs, Pterodactylus had wings formed by a skin and muscle membrane, stretching from its elongated fourth finger to its hind limbs. Now, its name, Pterodactylus, translates from Greek to winged finger, and it would have been found in mainly Germany back in the Jurassic period, but remains of Pterodactylus antiquus have been found in other parts of Europe and Africa, and the fossil remains of Pterodactylus have primarily been found in the Solnhofen limestone of Bavaria, Germany. As for its hunting habits, based on the shape, size, and arrangement of its teeth, Pterodactylus had long been recognized as a carnivore specialized in small animals. A 2020 study of the pterosaur toothware supported this hypothesis that Pterodactylus preyed mainly on invertebrates and had a generalist feeding strategy, indicated by a relatively high bite force. And socially, the distinct year classes of Pterodactylus antiquus specimens show that this species likely bred seasonally and grew consistently during its lifetime. And this growth pattern is interestingly more similar to modern crocodiles rather than the rapid growth of modern birds. Alright, that's it for our Jurassic gents. Give them a hand. We're moving on to our Cretaceous crew. And we're going to start off with T-Rex, which was one of the largest land carnivores of all time. Its skull was significantly different from those of large non-tyrannosaurid theropods. It was extremely wide at the rear, but had a narrow snout, allowing for unusually good binocular vision. And the tip of this upper jaw was U-shaped, and most non-tyrannosaurid carnivores had V-shaped upper jaws, which increased the amount of tissue and bone that a tyrannosaur could rip out with one bite. And its name, Tyrannosaurus, meaning tyrant lizard, and Rex meaning king, so it's the king of the tyrant lizards. And it would have lived what is now North America during the late Cretaceous period, about 66 to 73 million years ago. And as for its skeletal remains, fewer than 100 specimens of Tyrannosaurus rex have been found, with about 32 of those being post-juvenile specimens, the most notable of these being Sue, which is about a 90% complete, massive skeleton of Tyrannosaurus rex. And Sue is my beloved. I took her to my prom. As for the hunting habits, most paleontologists accept that Tyrannosaurus were both an active predator and a scavenger like most large carnivores. A debate exists, however, about whether Tyrannosaurus was primarily a predator or a pure scavenger. The evidence shows that Tyrannosaurus rex had arms that were too short to make the necessary gripping force to hold on to prey, although there are many animals, like the terror bird that came after it, that don't use their forelimbs at all to hunt. Tyrannosaurus had large olfactory bulbs and olfactory nerves relative to their brain size. This suggests a highly developed sense of smell, which could sniff out carcasses over great distances, as modern vultures do. Tyrannosaurus' teeth could crush bone, and therefore could extract as much food, like bone marrow, as possible from carcass remnants. And some arguments about the T-Rex's true speed swing the predator versus scavenger argument both ways, basically saying that on the slower side, it would have probably leaned more towards being a scavenger, and on the faster side, being a predator. Now, its social habits actually lead credence to its hunting habits that I just discussed. It has been seen on various fossilized remains, including other T-Rex specimens, that there was heel damage inflicted by a T-Rex, and this would tend to indicate that from Tyrannosaurus rex to other species, including its own, that it had aggressive behavior. It could be said that this aggressive behavior would mean T-Rex was in fact a predator and perhaps just scavenged when it had the opportunity, much like the modern-day Komodo dragon. There is also strong evidence to suggest that T-Rex was a little cannibalistic, in at the very least the opportunistic way where it fed on dead members of its own species. And while there is no direct evidence of Tyrannosaurus raising their young, it has been suggested by some that its closest living relatives, modern archosaurs, which are birds and crocodiles, reptiles, and that Tyrannosaurus may have protected and fed its young. It has been suggested that T-Rex could have hunted in packs, but this is based off of another species, Arbosaurus batar, which is supported by many specimens being found in different age groups inside of a bone bed. Additional support for the Tyrannosaurid gregariousness can be found in fossilized trackways from the Upper Cretaceous Wapiti Formation of the northeastern British Columbia, Canada, left by 3 tyrannosaurids traveling all in the same direction. Other researchers have speculated that instead of a large theropod social groups, some of these finds represent behaviors more akin to Komodo dragon-like mobbing of carcasses, even going so far as to say that true pack hunting behavior may not exist in any non-avian dinosaurs due to its rarity in modern-day predators. I know, kind of shocking. Alright, next we have Deinonychus anteropus, which, based on a few fully mature specimens, it is estimated that Deinonychus could reach 3.3 to 3.4 meters, or 10 foot 10 inches, 11 foot 2 inches in length. The skull of Deinonychus was equipped with powerful jaws lined with around 70 curved blade-like teeth, and the terrible claw portion of its name refers to the unusually large sickle-shaped talon on the second toe of each hind foot. Deinonychus possessed large hands with 3 claws on each forelimb, and as I mentioned before about the dinosaur renaissance, what I was saying is that the study of this dinosaur ignited the debate on whether dinosaurs were warm-blooded or cold-blooded, and before this dinosaur's discovery, it was a popular conception of dinosaurs to be one of plodding reptilian giants. Now, its name, Deinonychus, means terrible claw, and the species name Anteropus means counterbalance, owing to the theorized function of its tail. It would have lived in what is now North America during the early Cretaceous period, about 115 to 108 million years ago, and fossilized remains of its skeleton have been recovered in the U.S. states of Montana, Utah, Wyoming, and Oklahoma, in rocks of the Cloverleaf Formation and the Antlers Formation. Now, its hunting habits are quite interesting. One hypothesis of how this animal hunted, known as the raptor prey restraint, or RPR model of predation, proposes that Deinonychus killed its prey in a manner very similar to extant accipitrid birds of prey. What I mean by that is that it would have leapt onto its quarry, pinning it under its body weight and gripping it tightly with its large sickle-like claws. And like accipitриds, the dromaeosaur would then begin to feed on the animal while still alive, until it eventually died from blood loss and organ failure. The RPR method of predation would be consistent with other aspects of Deinonychus's anatomy, such as their unusual jaw and arm morphology. Now, its arms were likely covered in long feathers, which may have been used as flapping stabilizers for balance while atop struggling prey. Now, socially, whether or not Deinonychus could have practiced cooperative pack-based hunting is still a hot debate today. There is evidence both for and against this, but it seems that a line can be drawn right in the middle. Perhaps there may have been a cooperative hunting between Deinonychus working together to take down prey that a single animal of its size could not. But that's probably all it was, cooperative, opportunistic-based hunting between Deinonychus, and probably not any presence of coordinated pack-like behavior that are displayed in mammals, like modern wolves. And last but not least, for our Cretaceous crew, we have the Triceratops, which is my wife's favorite dinosaur. Now, the Triceratops bore a large bony frill, 3 horns on the skull, and a large 4-legged body, exhibiting convergent evolution with bovines and rhinoceroses. Now, the function of these frills and its 3 distinctive facial horns on its head have inspired countless debates. Traditionally, these have been viewed as defensive weapons against predators. More recent interpretations find it more probable that these features were primarily used in species identification, courtship, and dominance display, much like the antlers and horns of modern ungulates. Not to say this to mean that pointing these horns in the direction of a predator would make them any less potentially lethal. Now, Triceratops belongs to the ceratopsid subfamily of dinosaurs, and Ceratopsia is a group of herbivorous beaked dinosaurs. Its name means 3-horned face, and it would have lived in the late Cretaceous period, about 68 to 66 million years ago, in what is now northwestern North America. Multiple specimens of its skeleton have been found in South Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, North Dakota, Colorado, Alberta, and Saskatchewan. As for its hunting habits, Triceratops were herbivorous, and because of their low-slung head, their primary food was probably low-growing vegetation. Although, due to their size, they may have been able to knock down taller plants with their horns And socially, Triceratops is commonly portrayed as a herding animal, but there's actually very little evidence to suggest that they did live in large herds. While several other ceratopsians are known from bone beds preserving bones from 2 to hundreds or even thousands of individuals, there is currently only one documented bone bed dominated by Triceratops bones. And everyone clap your hands for the Cretaceous crew and get out your phones, because we are going to move on to the Kibber group here in the Quaternary period. We are giving an honorable mention to Smilodon here, because it was one of the best known saber-toothed predators and prehistoric mammals that ever lived. Although commonly known as the saber-toothed tiger, it is not closely related to the tiger or any other modern-day cats. Overall, Smilodon was more robustly built than any extant cat, with particularly well-developed forelimbs and an exceptionally long upper canine teeth. In North America, Smilodon would have hunted large herbivores such as bison and camels. Smilodon is thought to have killed its prey by holding it still with its forelimbs and biting it, and scientists debate whether Smilodon had a social or solitary lifestyle. Analysis of modern predator behavior, as well as Smilodon's fossil remains, could be construed to lend support to either view. And the last reason you should like Smilodon is because you can ride them in Far Cry Primal. Very nice. Alright, and that's it for our summary and analysis, guys. Thank you for watching another video of mine. I really appreciate you guys. I have gained what I consider to be meteoric support for these videos that are coming out. I'm just glad that someone's around to hear me yelling into the void about dinosaurs. It's pretty nice. I hope you guys had a great Christmas. I hope you guys have made your resolutions for 2025. I'm going to hold you to them. Don't forget it. And I want you guys to have an awesome, excellent day. Thank you, and bye-bye.